Alright guys, today we're looking at basic operations involving exponents, okay? So we should hopefully know what an exponent means or an exponent does. So for example, 2 to the 5th means we're just taking 5 2's and multiplying them out and figuring out what number we get, which would be 32. There's a button on your calculator that will do it for you. It looks like this, called a caret. So if you find that button on your calculator, it can do it for you. But be careful. Remember, especially when you're plugging in for variables, your calculator is only as smart as you are. Okay? So as far as negative numbers go, this is where things can get a little bit tricky. Okay? So 2 to the 4th, that's 16. Okay? But now I want to talk about what the difference is between all of these things. 2 to the 4th, I think that one's pretty obvious. It's 4 2's. But there's actually a difference between negative 2 to the 4th without the parentheses involved and negative 2 to the 4th with the parentheses involved. You see, you treat the negative symbol like negative 1 times that number. It's really what that means. So you don't apply the negative until your multiplication step. So if the negative isn't in parentheses, you only use it once. If the negative is in parentheses, you use it for however many numbers you have for that exponent. So in this case, 4 times. Okay, so what's weird is these two answers will get you 16, and this one will actually get you negative 16. Okay? When you're plugging in for a number, it's even crazier. Okay? What you have to be really careful of when you're plugging in a number is when you apply the negative. Okay? So here, what I like to think of is, remember when you're doing x squared, that means you're squaring the whole thing, whatever x is. So x squared, this really does just mean 3 squared, which is 9, when x is 3. When x is negative 3, you are squaring the negative because x is equal to this entire thing. So you are doing negative 3 squared. So that also gets you 9. Down here, you're doing the same thing as you were doing above, except you're not squaring the negative. Just like up there when the negative wasn't in parentheses and you didn't use the negative multiple times, you only used it once, it's going to be the same thing down here. Okay, so that's actually a second little negative sign in there. So while both of these look different, both of them get you answers of negative 9. What you should just be aware of is this. You should be able to tell ahead of time whether your answer is going to be positive or negative, or maybe it depends. So like, as an example, x squared, that was going to be positive no matter what. It was going to be positive every single time because you were always going to be taking whatever x was and squaring it. The second set was always going to be negative. Okay, that's really it for this one. We're just plugging in numbers. The biggest thing you got to be careful of when you're plugging in for variables is you got to know your order of operations. So like that letter C, negative x squared means square whatever x is. Okay, and if x is just a 3 or a negative 3, you got to bring that negative into play then. Okay, but then you apply the negative at the end. Okay, so again, one quick other way to think about this, remember x squared is the same as x times x. This is the same as negative x times x. Okay, so if you look at it in this way, this always has to be positive and this expression will always have to be negative because you're going to do x times x and then apply the negative at the end. Okay, try some practice problems. Hopefully it goes well.